going on, guys? So I'm currently in between projects, and I thought I would just do kind of a behind the scenes and a quick update and a small shop tour. I'm not working with anything fancy. It's just my garage, which most of you are working with the same. You guys see how unorganized my garage can typically be, because unfortunately I just have way too much going on sometimes. I've got 4 kiddos. I've got a family to take care of, a normal day job, and unfortunately when I'm trying to cram in some sort of project, the last thing I have time for is getting everything put away. Certainly I should make time for it so the next time it's easier to get started. Would I prefer it's always organized? Of course, but you know what? I don't want my organization or the fact that my shop's not perfect to be the reason I don't just get started. Putting embarrassment to the side, I just go ahead and keep filming the content. And I'm sure there are more like me out there that are dealing with the same things. Don't let that be the reason you don't get started. Now, certainly the organization and what the background in your videos looks like would be one of the reasons people don't start doing something like this. And I didn't want that to be me. I was just finally like, you know what? It's never gonna necessarily be perfect. I've got young kids, so a mess is gonna be part of my life for a little while, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So I'm just gonna continue to make projects with whatever I have to work with. I'm gonna continue to make it happen. Every time I come to the shop, I've got a little bit of things to rearrange and organize. Even just getting my tools in the right spot each time, because depending on what the project is, I might have to pull out the table saw, the miter saw, the planer, whatever it is. I typically have to move something anyways. And even if the shop was perfect, that's how those typically are too, whether your stuff's on carts or whatever it is. But throughout this video, guys, I'm asking for your input and your pointers. What would you do? How would you organize certain things? What tips and tricks have worked really well for your shop? Specifically, how do I balance all of the toddlers' toys as well as trying to keep a functional shop? I've got the bikes, I've got camping stuff, I've got so many things, and I don't have a lot of storage. I don't have an option to put necessarily another shed. I do have a shed which helps me keep all of the big tools, the lawn care stuff, shovels, and those kind of things I can keep in the shed. So there are a few things I can get out there, but my shed is actually really well organized. It looks nothing like this, and that's because nobody else has any access to it. Nothing's getting just tossed in there. Everything is put away with purpose every single time. So the lawnmower, the snowblower, the whatever it is, all of those things are in there with an intentional spot to be put away each time. I don't have that currently in my shop, in my garage here. It's something I would love to get to, but just even finding the time to do that, I mean, it's days worth of work that it's gonna take me to get there. But otherwise, again, I'm just gonna do a quick tour. I'm gonna go over some of my key tools, the layout of where some of the stuff is in my shop, because it's not anything special. I have a decent sized garage. I do have like roughly a 2.5, so I do feel pretty blessed with the space that I have. Not ideal for being able to get out here and start a project right when I come out. I definitely have some stuff that I could get rid of course, just like everybody does. It's tough to do sometimes. So I've been attempting to get my garage right side up again. I already did that pantry over there, which is already in full swing and fully used. That help us get a lot of stuff out of the kitchen, since we don't really have a big pantry over there inside the house. Definitely helps offset that a bit. This rack here typically was really organized, and it's just become kind of a catch-all. So today I'm actually going to see about getting it all reorganized and back to straight. A lot of stuff just ends up getting thrown in there, especially when I'm in the middle of a project, or even when my wife finds something that I left in the house. Typically will end up right up there on the top of that shelf. So if I'm ever missing anything, that's where I can typically find it. But so I got some things to put away, and ultimately I'm just working to get it back into a little bit of shape so I can get on to the next project. And curious what you guys do with, if you're sharing a space with your wood shop, with your other shop, whatever hobbies you're doing, and the kids and the family. Clearly, we don't park any cars in here. This is typically just my shop and a storage for all of our stuff. So I'm just curious what you guys do to balance it all out. How do you keep your shop organized while also having all the kids' stuff or family stuff that takes over this space? You know, typically when things come back into the garage, they're not getting put away. That's not necessarily that I was out there using it with them. The kids will typically just drop stuff, which is okay. They're supposed to be having fun, but maybe coming up with the right spot for them to be able to put it back, which I haven't been able to figure out what that looks like. So give me your feedback. What do you guys think works really well for keeping everything organized? One of my tools being this trailer back here, kind of how I get all the stuff to my shop, back and forth. I don't have a pickup truck, so I pull that out. It just folds out. It's one of those ones from Harbor Freight, if you've ever seen them. And I just attach it to the back of my SUV, and I'm able to bring wood home, project stuff, whatever it is. I've brought hundreds of bags of mulch home with that thing for backyard projects, the garden beds, but different things like that. And so I need that to be able to fit in the garage. I live in a neighborhood that I can't have things outside. We do have an HOA, so it's got to live in here. I was hoping this cabinet was actually going to fit here lengthwise against the wall. It's actually a little too wide. So whether it's tweaking that shelf to stick out and that one to go flat, there's something over here that I'm going to find a way to tweak those in there, and as well as building in some other shelving. If you guys have any ideas for that, that would be great as well. One of the next projects I have this white shelving here, which I utilized on the pantry on a previous video, but I do plan to put it along a wall up there above my reloading corner over there, and that's going to help me hopefully get some stuff off the floor. Can't necessarily put the kiddo stuff there because they need to be able to get to it, not necessarily with us grabbing it for them each time, because that's not necessarily convenient. One of the main tools that I have in my shop and anybody's shop would be a table saw, right? I just have a job site saw. It's got the foldable legs. I can pull this thing out to wherever I need it to be. I can work in the driveway. I could extend projects out through the driveway with the garage door open. This typically will live over in that corner, but if it's raining or snow, I'm unable to use it because I got to have that door closed. So right now, with some projects I've been doing with all the rain coming through, I've been working in this space over here. I'll also typically wheel some other stuff out here that I'm using to be right in this space as well. Nothing special. Again, I would love to have a cabinet style saw, but that's also pretty massive to try and fit into everything else I have going on. So not necessarily ideal. So over here I have my miter saw. I've just thrown it on top of a Husky cart that I have. Kind of made it a little more mobile. It's not necessarily as stable as I'd like it to be, so at some point I need to either build a cart or build a miter station. Certainly this wall behind me would be fantastic for a miter station, so maybe at some point. So by far my favorite tool in my shop. It is on a cart, so it is a little easier to use that way, but my Dewalt 735 planer. This thing's a big game changer, probably the biggest investment I have in a tool, but I'm typically doing a lot of dealing with rough lumber, pallet wood, or wood that I reclaim from certain places. This does a fantastic job of being able to clean that up and making it more usable without having to do a ton of extra sanding or things like that. So definitely a big upgrade for me. And again, the biggest investment that I have in this shop is that, you know, you've seen it on other YouTube videos. Should I get a joiner? Should I get a planer? This made a lot more sense for me than a joiner. As you guys have seen, I've done a lot of stuff with using a level and such for getting some of those straight edges with my table saw. I don't have a joiner at this time. Maybe at some point I will, because certainly there is a benefit to having them, but this actually served me more for all the stuff I am doing. That's definitely my favorite one there. So behind me here, this is actually a workbench in progress. I have some of the footage put together for that, but I actually need to plane the entire top of that to get it down. I've done some hand planing with just your old school, like your grandfather's normal wood planing by hand. To get it to rough, could use some sanding, of course. Ultimately, maybe get a router sled and get it planed down, which, speaking of router sled, in this box right down here, I managed to get a router sled for 30 bucks on one of those auction sites. So kind of excited, but I don't even have a planer to put in it yet. I couldn't pass it up. So my bench is just kind of living over here on some sawhorses, and typically it's really usable, but I ended up needing to move a lot of the lumber out of the way of something else. So it ended up being there. I had to get this trailer out over here, and normally the lumber was stacked up over there. So it's back on top of the bench. It's one of those things that I do need to clean up. So I'm contemplating making one of those wall racks maybe to put all the loose lumber on. What do you guys do with your loose lumber? Do you have a cart? Do you have a spot in your shop that you kind of put it on a wall, like one of those wall racks? Typically leaving it on the concrete, it could suck up some moisture, so not the best. You could get some warpage and stuff out of that. So if it's on the floor, I do attempt to put it on some blocks to prevent that. But let me know what you guys do to help organize all the lumber that you guys have. I'm sure I'm not the only one with a lot of pieces. There are probably some that I could throw away and I just don't. So underneath the bench is where I've got basically a shop vac and one of those dust busters that you put on top of a bucket, and I connect that to all my tools. So the bucket, of course, collects all of the large particulate, and then the shop vac itself has a bag in there to help pick up all that fine stuff. I don't have any type of full dust collection in my shop. That is on my list. Even a fan with some filters maybe to pick up some of those smaller particles. That'll be a future build for me. As you guys can see, I typically will wear my mask to make sure I'm protecting my lungs from that kind of stuff, but definitely want something to cycle that air out. That is something that should be a priority, should be done first, and I have not been able to make that happen yet. Hopefully you have. If you guys have any tips in that area, let me know. Anything I should be considering as far as dust collection or even that micro particulate. I've seen a lot of videos out there about the fans with the filters and such, and I do plan to build one of those in the future, hopefully soon. I have this cabinet that I got for free. I intend to end up using it for storing some sort of the shop stuff, but I haven't gotten that far. It's actually just sitting there empty. Over here you can see a ton of boxes that are just sitting in the corner. Again, not ideal, but these actually have seat cushions for future projects that I'm building, patio furniture that I'm working on, and these are actually just a ton of different seat cushions for those projects. So hopefully once I kind of start getting that stuff put together, it'll get those out of the way. But either way, I gotta find a better way to store them. I just kind of tossed them over there so they were out of the way. Looking a little closer at this rack, I do have the potential to organize it pretty well. I mean, it's just shelving, of course, but typically it's got all of my electric tools, chargers, and such set out, not just a hodgepodge of stuff thrown on there. Get that back to organized today is the goal. Under here you can see I've got all the bikes. I got another work table that kind of moves around with me, but I've got the bikes, I've got camping stuff, I've got all of these kids stuff that I just got to find a better way to organize it. And so the bench that I just showed on the other side inevitably is going to have some legs with some large casters that I can actually roll right over this trunk. If you can see over here, I've got a steel trunk that I can store a lot of stuff in, and that bench is actually going to live on top of that. It's going to be able to roll over top of it to be out of the way, or pull out if I need to use it for different projects. It's already built to all those measurements. I just got to get it put together, and really the only thing standing in the way of that is getting it flattened. If you guys have any pointers on how to flatten it with the tools I've got, I don't have a hand planer besides just a physical do-it-yourself one, and I'm not so sure that I'm going to be able to get it to perfectly flat. It looks pretty good when I've done what I've done so far, but I'm just worried that it's not going to be perfectly square to what I would want for my bench. It's just a normal flat top made out of 2x4s, so no fancy tracks, no holes, no pegs, nothing like that. Just a good old style heavy-duty workbench. So up here I've got a ton of storage above my garage door there. I've got some of those rafter racks. They work pretty good, but I'm actually looking at those yellow boxes. You guys have seen the racks before, but I'm looking at putting some of those sliders up here where you can store those just on the ceiling. They just slide right into the track. So that'll be a future project. And speaking of those racks, it's actually a pretty handy spot to put my clamps hanging on. That's probably how they're gonna live even when I get stuff straightened out. It's a pretty convenient spot to have them out of the way. You're not really going to run into them, can tuck them further into that corner, but it actually works pretty good just having them hang right on that rack there. So as you guys can see, it's kind of a disorganized thing, but you know, working with what we got, I still feel pretty blessed to have some of the tools I do and the ability to come out here and do some of this work, even though my shop is not perfect. Definitely not clean. A lot of that can just be on me too, that, you know, not putting things back after a job, but juggling so many things. I'm sure you guys are dealing with a lot of that too. But again, let me know what you guys typically do to keep your shop in order. Any organizational tips you guys have, any storage ideas that you have. Again, I was going to do those storage containers on the ceiling. That really only helps get stuff out of the way, but what about the daily? Like, what do you guys do with your kids' bikes, especially if you don't have the wall space to necessarily hang them on? How do you keep the bikes accessible so your kids can get them out themselves? Thanks for watching. I hope you guys are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there. If you have any input or anything you'd like to see me put together, I've got some projects still planned out, but I got to get this garage organized before I can get chopping at them. I'm gonna get this organized today, and then basically this whole garage floor, get all these toys and stuff put away. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the page, and I'll see you on the next video.